University. So this is something that Lyn and I talked about, and he was like, oh, I've got all these classes, and we're like, oh, let's put together a little university, and everybody can, you know, come and get their booklet stamped. Make sure if you come back for the other classes, you bring your booklets, because you'll get a stamp in there. And then at the end of the second semester, we'll have a little graduation, and you'll have graduated with a certificate in birdology. So, yay!
You can put that on your resume.
Yeah, impress your friends with it and all that kind of stuff. So, has anybody not ever been to a talk here? Oh, well, oh, awesome, welcome.
No.
Okay, so I'm Tiffany, I'm the store manager. This is Stephen Lyn Bales. He is, you already introduced yourself.
Oh, they know me.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I guess that's about it, without any further ado. Knowing your backyard birds.
We got a few more just coming in.
It's our pleasure. We enjoy doing it, so. You got me.
If there's an empty chair near you, raise your hand. There's one here, there's one there. Thank you for coming. I have a foldable chair in the trunk of my car. I need it.
We have a bench.
Wow, this is incredible. Yes, this started, the last time I spoke here, I think that was the year, June. And afterwards, Tiffany and I were bouncing around. I thought everyone calls them WBU. And I said, oh, it'll be fun. Or she said, I don't recall, we'd start Wild Birds University. Tiffany ran with it. 2 weeks later, I get an email. She'd already designed our logo. I said, okay. She said, let's plan our classes. Okay. So there will be a total of 2 semesters, 4 classes each. Each is a month apart. I don't know if the handout had the complete schedule.
It doesn't, I've got that. I'll make copies for everybody. So
Okay,
you got
okay.
8-week schedule.
But I didn't know quite, and I got a handout of, this is your official bird checklist of the birds I'm going to talk about tonight, or today. Tonight. Blah, 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 blah. And what you do is when you go home, you write your name on it, and as you see each species, you check it off. You check it off, and some of these, you'll get 10 tonight as soon as you go home, probably, the most common ones. Anyway, so this will start. Oh my goodness, well, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. That's what you call previews of coming attractions. And those first 3, I'll know. Let's go back to our logo, okay. Anyway, if you become a hardcore birder, and there may be 1 or 2 in the room, this will start your life list. Hardcore birders, every time they see a brand new species, they write it down and where they saw it in the date. And hardcore birders, once they've seen all the birds in our area, and there's roughly 180 species here, so you don't have to leave the valley for 180. But after that, you start planning your vacation. Well, we need to go to California. We'll get at least 30 birds there. I have friends that are in the local bird club. That's how they plan their trips. Is where do we need to go to find more birds? And they do world. They go the world. And I read an article about 2 weeks ago about a man. I wish I remember his name, but he was from Germany. And his life list was up to almost 10,000. And he was, I think it was like he needed 20 more species to get 10,000. Now that's hardcore. And a man with some money to plan a trip. So it is possible, you're starting your what's called the birding life list. And that's what'll get you going there. Come on in. Did we have an empty chair? Oh wait.
We got a bench coming.
We got a bench coming.
Oh, there's 1 empty chair up here.
Right over here in front of the cash register, there's an empty chair. Right here. Wow. This is exciting. We never knew. Anyway, I didn't know your experience levels, and I think it's all along. There's starters, and there's people who've been doing it for years, so I really started with all the basics. So I came up with this program of 30 common birds. Well, I shouldn't use the word common. 30 birds you're apt to see around your house and your yard. Some are a little harder to find, some are only here briefly, So that's the 30 on the list. Now, we'll get started. Goodness.
I got two things before you get started.
Okay.
Okay, one, in your little booklet, you'll notice you have homework, which he already went over with his list, but for each class, you'll have something. So obviously this one is when you go home, watch your feeders for 30 minutes and kind of basically apply what you learned in the class.
Oh, cool.
I already said it for you folks that just came in. In the book, you'll see your first page is already stamped. Make sure you bring this back with you to all the classes that you come to, and we'll stamp your every class you come to, okay? Do you have any questions? This is for you to keep, so you can make notes in it and all that kind of stuff. And any questions about that? All right, class photo.
Thank you.
All right.
As I said, Tiffany ran with this. It was such a cool idea. Okay, let's get going. Who's first? Okay, 30, coming back to our birds. Carolina chickadee. I think we all know this one. And the only black, it's got a little black cap, it's got a little black bib and white, but this is very small, little petite bird that comes off. And the only confusion you might have is if you moved here from the north, you're gonna say, well, no, that's the black cap chickadee. They look identical. We do have black cap chickadees in East Tennessee, but you gotta drive to the top of the Smokies. You gotta go up to Newfound Gap and those areas and look for chickadees up there. The two look absolutely identical. If I had a black cap and a Carolina in each hand, you would notice that one was bigger. If you live in colder climates, you gotta have more bulk. You gotta be a little bulkier. So, and their territorial songs are different. We'll cover territorial songs in a later class, but that's the only way you really can't tell. But trust me, down in the valley, this is what we have. Carolina chickadee, you know him. As soon as you get home, 30 seconds after you get home, you can mark that one off. Oh, there he is. Or she, and the female, male and females look identical. Ta-da! Tufted titmouse. This one is closely related. This one follows the chickadees in. They are very closely related. Although they don't look that much alike to me. The titmouse has the little crest, but male and females look alike, and they're often, that'll be, I started out putting them in the order, I think you'll be checking them off when you get home. So that's the tufted titmouse. It does have a little gray crest, and very lively, very vocal. We'll get into vocals later, in a later class, but Peter, or just beat, much louder than chickadees. So that's titmouse. White, I love these guys. This is a species, and they come and go. They're there, not as quite as common, but this is a species you can absolutely identify by behavior. If you're staring way into the trees and you see a bird walking down the tree, it's this bird. No other bird can walk down the trunk of the tree. Anyway, they are walking down the trunk. The theory, most other trunk birds that really feed on trunks of trees walk up the tree, but the theory is somewhere along the line, nature is so wonderful. It creates all of these wonders. Somewhere along the line, and the name nuthatch comes from nuthack. It used to be called nuthack. If they find a nut, or say a sunflower seed, they'll cram it into the crevices of the bark and hack at it. And that's how they open it. But somewhere along the line, the original nuthatch started walking down the tree, and from that angle, you see different things. You say, wow, why didn't we think of this before? So it's the only one you can see in the distance, like spiraling down the tree. Wow, that's the white-breasted nuthatch. We're mad here. This is almost my favorite thing. Every house comes with a pair of Carolina wrens. They're around your house. They're perky. This is what I show kids at IMS. This is your basic wren shape. All the wrens have that little erect tail, and they bounce around, and lively, fussy. They own your house. They just own your house. We'll get into nesting next spring, but these guys nest early. But Carolina wren. Now some of you may have. I don't where I live, and trust me, I know what's around my house. Some of you may actually have the house wren, and we'll get that to in a minute. Some of you may have house wrens, do not have the streak. Obviously, this one has an appetite for harvestmen, or daddy longlegs is what we like to call them in the South. but no streak. But many of you, I have a friend that lives in Fountain City. She does birds, loves her birds, but she doesn't get Carolina wren, she gets this wren. So they're around. This is not as common, but you may have both. So this one just doesn't have the white streak. That photo doesn't show it, but it particularly bounces around with its a little red tail. So that's house wren. Oh. These are typical. That's one of the first things that mourning doves have to learn how to do is make that more. They're called mourning doves because it sounds like they're always crying.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're typically ground feeders. They will come up to a feeder that's got some kind of platform for them, but mostly they're feeding on whatever seeds were kicked out by the other birds, and they're bouncing around. Sometimes you look at it and you have 3 or 4 together. Doves and pigeons love family, love a group, so they hang together. And the male, they look identical. The males are slightly larger, and the males, you'll notice in certain lights, the males have a little iridescence on the side of their throats. But typically I look for size, and when we get to next February, oh my goodness, they're picking partners, but these guys are probably still gonna be nesting. They can do 6 broods a year. 6. Anyway, that's mourning dove. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You can hear it all. My mourning doves are out there. I got a hope to find food. I love the color of their feet. Oh my. I don't even know how to describe it, but I just love to watch them. I just love them. They waddle around. Okay, who's next? Cardinal, another bird you all know. You've known it since the 1st grade. The males are bright red, and the females aren't. The females have red on. They're both very aggressive, but this is the northern cardinal. Cardinals have those big seed chomping bills. They love sunflower seeds. And when they're doing that, every now and then they knock one out, and the mourning doves, thank you, come on down, bring it down. So that's cardinal. Okay, hold on to your seat. It's within the realm of possibility. These have been showing up in the East for about 20 years. Your odds of seeing one at your house are probably 1 billion to 1, but it's possible. This photograph was taken by a birder I know, Catherine Reddick, and she lives in Rome County. Late November into this, it stayed in her backyard for late November, December, and early January. If she didn't see it, it was a male, bright yellow, and I wrote an article about it for Hellbender Press online. And into January, if she didn't see it in her yard, she'd see it in her neighbor's yard at the feeder. So it's it's a phenomenon we don't quite understand for some reason.
What is it?
It's a male cardinal. This is not red, it's yellow.
Oh, it is?
It's a male cardinal, trust me. I'm sorry, I thought it was obvious.
Oh, it doesn't say what it is.
Oh, well, I was trying to be mysterious. I thought it would be obvious. Anyway, it is a male cardinal, and if you go online and look it up, there is a phenomenon that's been going on about 20 years. They don't know if they've been around longer, but they started showing up several places in Florida, but all throughout the northern cardinal range, these pop up every now and then. They don't know what's going on, but for some reason, this male cardinal can't, when it eats berries in the fall, it can't process them to red internally, it processes them to yellow. So, it's possible. It is a northern cardinal that's yellow. So it's within the realm. If you see one in your backyard, get a photograph, call Tiffany, it's like, wow. Come on. And he said it's 1 billion to 1. That's kind of, you won the lottery. And there's no money involved. Now, if you get a photograph of the ivory-billed woodpecker, $50,000 is the current reward. But don't worry, they've never been here, they never have been here, and they may already be extinct. Anyway, I wrote a whole book about the ivory-billed woodpecker. And they took great photographs in black and white in 1935. We'll get to you in just a minute, okay? Who's next? We'll find out who's next.
Yep, you love them.
Closely related to a cardinal, got those big seed crunching bills. They're migrants, they just pass through. I typically get them at my house, and once birds know you're feeding birds, I don't know how long you've been doing it, but the more you do it, they learn your house, they know where to go. This is a migrant that passes through in the spring, and last year I kept them, not necessarily the same one, they're flying in to fatten up, eat, and then they'll migrate further. Breasted grosbeak, typically it's the males first. If you, and I wish I remembered the date, but it's something like shortly after the first day of spring. And I kept them for about 10 days, not necessarily the same one. I looked at one day, there was 3 male rose-breasted grosbeak. The males pass through first because they're in a hurry to go to their territory and claim where they normally nest and claim territory. Now in Tennessee, they do nest in Tennessee, but it's further north. If you drive up I-75 and around Lake City, drive up on the Cumberland Mountains up there, they nest there, but not here. So they're just, some of the birds, it's like when you start that, well, we'll get hummingbirds in there. Anyway, so it's possible you'll get them, and then after about a week or more, I started the females. The females come later. They know the guys have to go claim territory, and then they'll go pick out a guy who's got good territory. So the females go, I don't have to get there in a hurry. They're gonna scrap over territory first. So anyway, that's the road. I love this bird, but it's certainly possible. Very possible, and you'll get them in the fall too. I don't tend to see them as long in the fall as I do in the spring, but they come around. They've been coming to my house for 10 years or more. So again, the more you feed, the more you keep your feeders going. This is one of those special birds. And you'll call all your neighbors, look, guess what, I got one of those rose-breasted grosbeak. Come on over, we'll have tea.
It's cool, never mind.
House finch. I'm sure you got them. They're aptly named. There for a while, I was watching all the Papa house finches training the young ones how to eat seeds. And there would be seeds on the ground, and the young ones were standing there, and Pop would say, look down. And every now and then, Dad would pick one up and cram it in its mouth, and it would start begging again, begging. Baby birds beg with their wing flop, and Dad was going, down, and Dad kept backing up, and finally the young, oh, here it is. So anyway, that's a male and female house finch, fairly common. They nest late. Seemed like it was in June I was seeing so many of them at my feeders, and then a little bit later I started seeing the parents with the young ones. So that's house finch. Look, the books tell you it's frontal red, it's cherry red. Like they were been eating cherry pie enthusiastically, so it's all over the front and not on the back. So, drum roll. This one is possible in the winter. Last year they came early to my house. I had them from late November and through into February. It's a purple finch. I don't like the name. They did not call me. I would have named it raspberry finch. That's not purple. Minnesota Vikings wear purple. That's raspberry, but you can see both in the winter around your feeders. You can see both a house finch and a purple finch. They're kumbaya. They're about, speaking of kumbaya, in the wintertime, birds flock together at your feeders. It's called a mixed winter flock or mixed winter foraging flock. And you'll see 7-8 species, and they're kumbaya. We love each other, and there's a reason they watch each other's back. If there's a predator to come in, like a Cooper's hawk or the neighborhood cat, the first one that sees it, and then will disappear. So they're really watching each other's back in the wintertime, so you'll see multiple species and are hanging around with each other and say, hey, come on in, eat. So keep your feeders going. But this one, if you think you've got a purple finch, look at the sides. The streaks that are on the sides for a house finch, I don't think my slide showed it well. If they do, are brown. The house finch have brown streaks on the flanks, and the purple finch, the raspberry. That's raspberry. But a gorgeous bird, absolutely gorgeous. But again, I got them at my house last year early, it seemed like around Thanksgiving. And I'm, oh my God, they're here early this year, and I kept them for weeks and weeks and weeks, because they kept food out. So that's the purple finch, but only here in winter time. American goldfinch, they're out there now, bobbing around, they're gorgeous. If you grow coneflower, they'll go to the coneflower too. So the male's the one with a little black cat, and the female does not, but they're both yellowy, but very common, and will come to your feeders and stay at your feeders. And then in the wintertime, they change colors, they drift off into a drab or yellow, so they want to hide and be more winter looking. So it's possible to see a finch at your feeders in the wintertime that is not that electric yellow. So that is, well, we have time. Oh, we're doing great. So that is American goldfinch in the winter plumage. So you'll keep them year round, off and on, but you should see them every day, or not necessarily every day, but often. That's American goldfinch. Who's next? I debated this one. I almost didn't include it because their numbers are dropping. But then I decided that's why I should include it. Its numbers are dropping. This is an eastern phoebe. Gets its name because it says its name. Phoebe. So that was easy to name. It says, I'm a phoebe. So that's kind of the call. You'll hear the call constantly. But they eat insects primarily. They are, and that's why their numbers are probably dropping. And this is the only member of the flycatcher group that stays with us 12 months of the year. So normally they find enough flying insects to make it through the wintertime. But last winter was terrible. So I don't know what they did. They will eat berries too. But this one you can identify by behavior as well. It's a tail bobber. It's got a nervous tick. It'll be sitting on a perch. You'll notice it. Even from a distance, you'll say, what is it? Because it's very kind of nondescript. Oh my goodness, that's a phoebe. He's doing that little tail action, so he's a tail bobber, so it's an eastern phoebe. And again, I almost didn't include it because their numbers are dropping, but that is why I did include it, just to be aware. And what they do, they often will nest on your house. They'll nest on an outdoor light. They'll nest on any kind of substrate. Kind of like an osprey, they need a solid, or a robin, they'll need a solid substrate to build on, like an outdoor light, or if you've got some kind of little ledge around your house, that's where they nest. So it's possible, and you'll never see them out of feeder, but you'll see them somewhere nesting in the spring, not now. So they do use your house or a solid substrate to nest on. Speaking of which, the one thing you have to do, for some of the birds that really don't come to the seed feeder, bird bath. I have two, I keep the water fresh, and it's dry out, and I've got birds coming and going. One of my great joys, pardon me, I guess this sounds like I'm a voyeur, is watching a titmouse take a bath. They are enthusiastic bathers. Now, every time they land in a bird bath, they do look around. I have to be careful that a Cooper's hawk's not watching them, because then it'd be a soggy titmouse. And they'll look and nothing, everything's fine, everything, jump right in. Oh, it's so much fun. So a bird bath. They need, our summers are dry, we're going through September, which is traditionally dry, but then one of my bird bath is heated, because it's even more so in the wintertime. You need a heated bird bath, because we go through these long spells where there's no water anywhere, it's all ice, and so I've got a heated bird bath. It works great, and the birds will come in, and it's not like a heated pool. It keeps it just above freezing, so it's still cold water. But I'll look at it and I'll see 5 or 6 bluebirds just waiting around. My turn. So a bird bath is very important year round. And just keep the water clean and you'll have a lot of fun with it. Who's next? Blue jays. I think everybody in the room knows a blue jay. Some people don't like them. I love them. They're great. They're gorgeous birds. Absolutely gorgeous. Remember that week we had, for a week, it was like 4 degrees. And I kept thinking, I want to draw a blue jay. I want to draw a blue jay, and I could even sit there and think it and start doing those strokes. I want to draw a blue jay. And all of a sudden, as if a blue jay hopped up on my railing and went, okay, do it. Stop sitting there, it's freezing outside, stop sitting there, draw it. So I got out my pad, and there is my blue jay drawing I did during that cold, cold weather. And the blue jay said, okay, you got me, but I was sitting here literally making the strokes. So all I had to do is put a blue pencil in my hand, put down a piece of paper. So that's blue jay. Male and female look-alike. They tend to be group oriented more in the spring. They'll bounce around now. Blue jay, you know blue jay. It's corvid. It's not COVID. It's one of the corvids, along with the crow, the raven, and the magpie. And we now know that's
nutcrackers. And nutcrackers.
No. Anyway, they're not. That's one of the smartest groups, or is the smartest group. The corvids will use tools, figure out how to get food if it's complicated to get to the food. So that's the corvid. So it's smart. My friends that catch and ban birds out at 7 Islands, if they are able to catch one blue jay and get a band on it, you do that to put a band with a number. That's how you keep track of. So that blue jay that's banded will always have that one number. No other bird has it. But once they catch one blue jay, they never catch another one. Because that blue jay goes up and says, don't go down there. Crows do the same things, et cetera, et cetera. So we have crows in the area, and if you want to see a raven, top of the mountain, along with the black-capped chickadee. Those are 2 top of the mountain birds. Eastern bluebirds. Males are bluer, although it gets a little drabber this time of year. But males are bluer, and the females are blue-gray. And what else can I say? I think you know your blue jay, or bluebird. Bluebird boxes. If you got a box, pat yourself on the back. This is a bird we almost lost. This is a bird that was considered rare in the 1920s and 30s. In a minute, she was considered rare in the 1920s and 30s. But then there was a massive movement to put up bluebird boxes. And that's what really brought the species back. They're no longer rare. They're out there, but if you, it's a great joy to have a bluebird box. I do a whole program about this bird. I love this bird. You know this bird, ruby-throated hummingbird. That's the male. The male has the throat feathers that are shiny red, and they are migratory. They're still with us, but I think we're past the peak of migration, and the numbers are going to start tailing off a little bit. Currently, I have 6 hummingbird feeders out. Every window. So I have, and this morning I had 2, whereas 2 weeks ago I was having 7 and 8 zipping around. So they migrated in the fall, going all the way back to Central.
It's also our only hummingbird.
What's that?
It's also our only hummingbird in Tennessee. It's the only hummingbird we have in Tennessee.
Except in the wintertime. We get some winter species. Okay, we'll get to you in a minute. This is my, when I retire, he's my replacement. Anyway, we do have wintering hummingbirds. So they used to, the rule of thumb used to be to, without giving too much away from my program we do next April. Anyway, well, that's April. Who's gonna? I won't remember. My goodness, that's after Christmas, for goodness sake. Keep the old rule of thumb to put your feeders out crazy day to crazy day. April Fool's Day to Halloween. They're now saying keep them out a little longer because our weather has changed and the warm weather stays longer. And you're not. And there's a kind of a saying out there: if you keep them out too long, your feeders, they won't migrate in time. No, they know when to migrate. You're just giving them more food, giving them more food. But now any hummingbird locally seen after November 15 is considered a wintering hummingbird. And we do have ruby throats. We also have rufous hummingbirds. And there's 5 other species that have been banded in Tennessee in the wintertime. This was started by Bob Sargent, who became the expert on ruby-throated hummingbirds. But locally, Mark Armstrong who used to be curator at the Knoxville Zoo, bird curator. He's got a federal license to ban wintering hummingbirds after 15. So it's possible, keep your feeders out if you want to, past Halloween. If it's gonna be a cold freezing night, and remember, sugar water doesn't freeze at 32 degrees. But if it's gonna be super cold, just bring it in, the feeder, and then put it out early next morning, so it stays warm overnight, and then hopefully it'll stay thawed out. So it's possible to see hummingbirds, possible, into November. I do the Christmas bird count, first day of, it's usually the first weekend of January, and we found a hummingbird the first week of January, North Shore of, no. It'll come to me. It'll come to me later. I know some of you can relate. I'll be driving home. And, oh yeah. Anyway. Oh, darn it. Anyway, I have seen one in the January. That would bug me for crazy. Anyway, I forgot to show you the female. Female has a white throat, and that's one of her favorite nectarine. That's bee balm. She loves bee balm, but this time of year, most of them are gonna look like females, because the young juveniles both have white throats. A male and a female both has a white throat, juveniles, but as they age, the male will start growing in his, it's possible, where we're at, we're in September, you may look out and see a hummingbird that's got little tiny red dots, and that's a young male just growing his adult plumage. So it's possible.
How long do they live?
How long did they live?
Yeah.
Longer than you might think. Bob Sargent, that's one reason you tag birds and give them a number. Bob Sargent would catch, back up. Bob Sargent would catch the same bird in his yard for like 8 years, and then it's gone. So they, consider their life, consider their heart rate, consider,
That's a long life.
it's a long life, and considering they fly across the Gulf of Mexico twice a year, yes, I think 8, maybe 7 or 8, but much longer than you would think. They live long, they're tough, they are tenacious and tough, and again, if you keep your hummingbird feeders out, and I will, I'm up to 6, but that was because the bulk of the population was flying through. I'll probably start taking 1 or 2 down. But I will keep them up past into November. But they live a long while. I don't know how they do it. And I write a whole chapter about hummingbirds in my 3rd book, because they're absolutely incredible. Everything they can do. They weigh less than 2 dimes. Next time, remember dimes? We used to carry a pocket with change. That's how we knew we had money. We'd jiggle our pocket. Oh, I got all kinds of money. Dimes. 10 cents. Anyway, the next time you've got 2 dimes, hold it. That is more than a hummingbird weighs. I've held them at Imes Hummingbird Festival. I picked one up that had flown into a window and comforted it until it kind of got its senses. So, but it is you barely feel it. So 2 dimes weigh about 4 grams, so they weigh less than 4 grams. Okay, move on. Song sparrows, I toyed over sparrows, because my goodness, there's a lot of sparrows. It's like yesterday when I was talking about weeds at the Arboretum, I was talking about, there's 31 species of goldenrod. That's like telling the goldenrod species apart's crazy. It's like sparrows for us bird guys. But this is the one you're more apt to see around your property, not necessarily at your feeders. They may come to your bird bath and splash around, because this time of year there's not a lot of standing water. And song sparrows like to be near water, but it's the one species of sparrow you can identify fairly easy by that one large black dot right in the center. Most sparrows have a dotted chest, or like this one, but song sparrow has the one very dark spot right here. So this is the one, that's the easiest to tell. And they have a long, they're called song sparrows because they have a long song. The mnemonic is, mates, go bring your tea kettle level. That's the mnemonic, but it sounds like ma da 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 da. It ends with a trill. Mates, go bring in your tea kettle. Okay, so this is the one sparrow. There's other sparrows. When you get to be a real birder, I am going to learn those sparrows. Go out to Seven Islands State Birding Park. My friend Claire is the naturalist there. There's sparrows all over the place. Most sparrows are grassland birds, so that's where to go. And this one tends to be a little less grassland, a little less, but I often, when I do bird counts, they tend to be close to water. So that's song sparrow. At Imes, it would always hang around. If you've been to Imes, that pond right in front of the visitor center, we usually have a song sparrow around it somewhere. That song sparrow, ta-da! This is the other sparrow you will get at your feeders. They're ground feeders like mourning doves, but they're gonna be bouncing around on the ground. All the seeds that the birds kick out, that's what they're feeding. White-throated sparrow, they typically arrive, they're only in the winter, probably late October into November, you'll start looking at them. And this is interesting, there's two difference. The one in the front is a white striped morph, the white and black with the yellow dots beside the bill. And the one up top is the tan stripe morph, tan and white with the yellow dots. So you can see they're the male and female both look alike. But if you see the black and white stripe next to the tan stripe, tan and buff really, that's just two different morphologies of this one bird. They interbreed, they intermingle, they like each other to a point. We'll cover that during our Birds in Love class. Okay, let's move on. Yes, we do have white crown sparrows. I almost included that too. And they tend to be more spotty. Some people have them, some don't, locally. But we do have a white crown sparrow.
I think the white crown sparrows are more common here, but back when I lived in California, we had white crown sparrows all the time during fall and winter, but after we moved, but the last time I ever saw a white crown sparrow was like not too long before we left California, and I haven't seen one since we made it here to Tennessee. It's only been the white-throated.
You will eventually. I forgot your first name.
Mine, Caden.
Caden?
Yeah.
Caden is a bird nerd like me. His life is birds. You will be reading books by Caden someday. Just trust me. So shake his hand now. Okay, where we at? Eastern towhee, this is another ground feeder, shyer. If you've got shrubbery, they'll be hiding on the ground in the shrubs. And there's a wonderful book called What the Robin Knows. It's got a great passage about this bird. And if you see towhee come out to around your feeders or on the ground, they trust you. They say, okay, they feel safe, and you'll see them come out. Around black on the back, the russet on the side, and then a white tummy. So that's Eastern towhee. Locally, it used to be called rufous-sided towhee. Gets real complicated. They realized they had two species that were really one species, so they lumped them into Eastern towhee. That's the male, and then the female looks just like it, that has a brown top, not a black top. But again, if you're seeing towhees, they trust you. They know you. I know them. They're good people. So they start coming out. They start hanging around, and they're feeding on the ground. They'll venture up to under the bird feeder, feed on the ground. Or, oh my God, nobody's in the bird bath. So anyway, that's Eastern towhee female. Where are we at? We're at number 19. We're getting there. God. Ooh. Northern mockingbird, Tennessee state bird. Male and female look-alike, very, very aggressive. Mostly you'll see them at your bird bath. They're berry eaters. They love berries. I think in December, a portion of our class in December, I'm gonna show all the different native berry producing trees and shrubs that are good to have around. So that's December. Anyway, Northern Mockingbird, we'll get into their songs later too, because it's complicated. But that's a Northern Mockingbird, I'm gonna show all three of them. We have 3 bird species that are mimic learners, and they keep learning song phrases all their lives. Most birds learn their vocalizations their first year. Mom and dad teach them. And then with mockingbirds is one of the mimic learners. Are always learning new phrases, new sound of car horns, the sound of chainsaws. They're always adding new phrases to their repertoire. So that's one of them. Northern mockingbird, Tennessee state bird, gray on the top, white underneath, and when they fly, you see the white on the wing. Brown thrasher, that's very closely related to the mockingbird, even though they look more like a sparrow, but very tall and lanky for a sparrow. Brown on the back, speckledy front, yellow eye. But again, this is another bird that hides in the bushes, and it comes out. And if you see that last year I was seeing a lot of them coming up principally to my heated bird bath. And get a drink of water, maybe not necessarily take a bath, but they couldn't find anything to drink. So that was brown thrasher, another mimic learner. They're always adding new phrases, new phrases to the repertoire. This is the last of the mimic learners, the gray catbird. Again, it hides, principally a berry eater. And you're lucky to get one to pop up where you can get a really good look at it. And it's called catbird because it's got a long and rambling song too that it has learned over the years, but every now and then it goes, meow. That's where the name comes from. Gray overall, dark gray on the top of the noggin, and then it's got that, the end of the tail, it's got that rufous. You often don't even see it. But that's the gray catbird, but you may have them, they're hidden in the bushes. Again, they're another one of those bush birds. That's 21. Dark-eyed junco. This is a bird that you only get in wintertime. I grew up as a kid learning this as a snowbird. It looks like it was walking through snow and cleaned its stomach. But they're only here in the winter. Now they nest in the Smokies. If you're a hiker and you get to the higher elevations, they nest in the rhododendron thickets. Like if you go on a mountain pecan or anything like that, and you walk on a trail with rhododendron, that's where they nest. But here they only come in winter. Last year I only had them briefly in February, but they will come to your feeders. But dark-eyed junco, gray all on the top, and looks like snow washed off their belly. That's how. As a kid, I learned it as snowbird. Anyway, dark-eyed junco, but only here in winter. American robin, here all the time, and you know your robins. They are grassland birds. They're doing very well population-wise. You'll see them running through the grass. They do eat worms, and male and female look alike, gray on the top, and the rose rusty underneath. This is another bird that I don't have a lawn. I live in the woods, but they come to my bird bath. Oh, you're feeling kind of pecky. You need a little water. They'll drink, and then maybe take a bath. So that's American robin. Indigo bunting. This is another one I debated not putting in. It's only here in the summertime, but truthfully, I do get them if they arrive now they're most of the birds that migrate are insectivores, and we don't have a lot of insects in the wintertime, so they migrate out to find insects in South America. So that's why they migrate. Indigo buntings, every now and then they'll get back too early, and there's not a lot of food in the trees, mostly caterpillars. Tiger swallowtails. He happened to draw one. Anyway, I love tiger swallowtail host plant is tulip tree. And so when a tulip tree, that's one of the first, that's a Tennessee state trees, tulip tree, not tulip poplar or yellow poplar. I went to UT, Dr. Jack Sharp would say, not a poplar, it's a magnolia, but anyway, Tennessee state tree, tulip tree, it leaves out very early. And you look up and you'll see tiger swallowtails just out of their chrysalises. They spend their winters in the chrysalis, high in a tulip tree, and red cherry is another who's went for. So you look at, where am I going with this? Oh, yeah, indigo bunting, they fly back early, and if there's not insects or caterpillars, you can't see them come down. They'll come down, I've seen them, they'll come down and take a bath, they'll come down. It's not like some of these birds don't quite understand what a bird feeder is. They go, what are you guys eating? What are you doing? They'll watch. I had a hooded warbler that came, and that's another class, that came to my, and he was watching all the other birds going, what are you guys doing? We're eating. But he didn't seem to know what they were doing. Couldn't figure it out, so it moved on. The hooded warbler is another one of the migratory birds that nest in rhododendron thickets as well, but it's an insectivore, so it's passing through. But birds will come to, when they see a lot of birds together, kumbaya, they say, oh, what's going on down there? So they'll go down. So I had a hooded warbler, I went, oh my God. It was only there briefly, but long enough to get my heart rate up, I guess. Anyway, indigo buntings may come, you may see them. They tend to be, they nest low, and they're here all summer, and the males tend to be incredibly high in a tree, because if the light is not exactly right, they look jet black. But if the sunlight hits them just right, they, oh my God, that's the bluest bird I know. So it's possible, if they get back early, they'll come down to your bird baths and maybe even scrum up some seeds. I saw, it's probably 30 years ago, this indigo bunting was bouncing around eating cast off seeds. I go, you're an indigo bunting. What are you doing? You're scavenging. Anyway, it was there for a while. So I decided to go ahead and include it because it's a preview of some of the summer birds that come. But this is not a bird feeder bird, but it may be in your yard, may nest in your yard. Oh, let's do woodpeckers. The downy's the little one. The male has the little red on the back. The female does not. That's my hand that she's perched on to give you a sense of size. That poor thing flew into a window, and I went out and picked her up and was holding her, giving her some good karma, some good cosmic love. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. And she's kind of okay. And then she hopped up and stood on my hand long enough and kind of looked around so I could get the photograph. But that's the female on the left, no red, and the male on the right. So that's the smallest of our woodpeckers. Very common, incredibly common. You'll see them. I don't want to say it's the most common woodpecker at your feeders, but it might be. Anyway, the other one that's rarer that looks just like it is the hairy woodpecker, and that one's got a more. It's hard to tell them apart. You have to really get a good look. Size is one thing, but it's hard to compare size if you don't have anything to compare it to. I've been doing this a long time. Only once that I can remember, I was leading a bird group out in Farragut, and we found the tree. It was one of their paved greenways. They had both a downy woodpecker and a hairy woodpecker. Now, oh my gosh, you never see that. Look at the big one, is the hairy. So it is bigger. I wish I had one on the hand that you could get a sense, but I don't. Again, the male has the red, the female doesn't. But the books will tell you try to get a good look at the beak, because this has a more traditional woodpecker bill than the little ones go back. Shorter beak, but that's hard. Trying to compare beak size when they're not side by side, but it's possible you will get both. It is possible, and you'll know it when you got, oh my God, that one is so much bigger. So the hairy is the bigger of the two, but they look identical. To my knowledge, the hairy is shyer and comes to your feeders much less often.
Yeah.
Downies are not shy, not shy. Now, if you open your door, they'll come in and eat with you. Right? If they can get room at the table because of all the Carolina Wrens. No, this is our house. Anyway, move on. Here's the other woodpecker that's fairly common at feeders. That's the red-bellied woodpecker. A lot of people will slip and call it the red-headed woodpecker, but that's a whole other species. And you can see the little blush of red on the female's tongue. He has the same thing, it's really more of a blush-bellied woodpecker, it's not solid red, but that's where the name came from. But the female's red stops on the back of the head, and the male's red goes all the way to the front of the bill. So that's how you tell the difference. Very common, they love feed, they'll come to your feeders, you've probably already seen them. But of the woodpeckers, the downy and the red belly are the two most common feeder birds. The others may come. Who we got next? The pileated. It looks like a ivory bill, but it's not. Trust me, it's not. The two look similar, but we never had ivory bills here. We've had pileated all along. That's the male. Got those big chipping. They work on dead trees. They're looking for insects under the bark of dead trees, like carpenter ants. And they got that big woodpecker drilling bill. And that would be the male. I have them in the woods behind my house, and occasionally I see them flying around, but I can't quite lure them in. Not even to my bird. I need a bigger bird bath. Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to fill up a tub. Anyway, that's the male. The males have the red mustache. Here's the female. She has the black mustache. So that's the female pileated woodpecker. They like bigger, more acreage than the others, but if you live near some woods, you may have them, probably do have them, and they work on dead trees. They do take care of chipping the bark away from dead trees to eat the insects that they find under the bark, and they will drill out a new nest hole in the spring. They typically will raise 3 in a clutch. Then the final woodpecker, and it's called flicker. In some cases, it's in our side of this country, they're yellow shafted. If you go to the California, you probably have red shafted.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was ahead of him that time.
We have the yellow shafted here, and you can usually tell because with the yellow shafted, the males are going to have that black mustache, while the red shafted are going to have that red mustache. And the yellow shafted, of course, are going to have the yellow under their tail and wings, while the red shafted are going to have the red under their tail and wings. And because the yellow shafted is more like the eastern northern flicker form, while the red shafted is more western. Because we had the red shafted flickers in California.
I've only seen one red shafted. I did a ghost bird talks in Washington State, and I was excited. That's a red shafted. So I've seen them. Anyway, back up. These are ground feeders. They eat ants. You love these birds. They'll use their woodpecker bill. Now they will drill out a nest hole, but they use that bill to scrape through an anthill. So if you got these in your neighborhood, just say kumbaya, eat our ants. And they'll find an anthill and start scraping through it like this. And of course, you know what? The ants are going crazy, and they go, oh boy, yum. I had a young man knock on my door. He's going to spray pesticides to kill my ants. And I said, no, I've got flickers. I don't need pesticides to kill my ants. I've got flickers. So he went, what? Anyway. Are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy. Anyway, where we at? Oh, we got right on time. Anyway, let's move on to the last. I wanted to put at least one little bird of prey, and I've tried to figure out which is the one that's most likely to be around your house and be there for a while. So I picked up the little. That's me. I know it, and that's my younger brother. That photo was taken 25 years ago. Anyway, God, that's when I first started working at IMS. That was the joy of starting to work with their injured birds. That is a eastern screech owl. It's possible you have them. They don't need a lot of woods. They need some woods, and they need food, mice, or anything. In the summertime, they need a lot of insects or insectivores in the summer. And this is the time of year to listen, because this is the time of year that the youngsters have left mom and dad, and they're claiming territory. And if you listen and you hear that, it's very soft and tentative, that might be a screech owl, and he's trying to see if anybody, is this yours? And if that property, if your backyard is claimed by another screech owl, ooh, okay, just passing through. But if it'll do that, if it's not hearing an answer, oh my God, this is my home, I'll claim it. And they need a olive tree to sleep in the daytime, because they're so petite, about the size of a can of Coke. Or you can put up a screech owl. If you think you got them, listen, see if you do. And this is the time you're just testing the ground. That's all they're really doing. They're not nesting yet. But you can put up a screech owl box about 15 feet up a tree, and you might lure them in, and you'll have them all the time. And people often say, where do I put the screech owl box? You want it 15 feet up, but you want it where you can see it. That's part of the joy. So if you got some wood, put it in the woods where you can sit on your back deck or watch through your window and look and see. And if you put up a box and you look out, remember they're nocturnal. So late in the day, that little face will start looking out. Oh my God, we've got one. So that's Eastern Screech Owl. This is another one of the interesting that come in two colors, two morphs. That's red-faced screech owl. And here's a gray-faced screech owl. We have both. The books will tell you that in the South, we tend to have more reds than grays, and in the North, it's more grays and reds, but we have both. And the two may pair up and produce a mixed clutch in the spring, but we have gray-face and red-face. And I think that photo, I'm starting to become a gray-face. So it's taking a little later, but that's the two of the different screeches that I've taken care of while I was working at Imes. And I think we're done. Any questions, guys?